Hello everyone. Tonight's story begins where polished people pray nothing real will happen. In a room full of diamonds, donor cards, and practiced smiles, one accusation split a family open before dessert was served. Mara Vale stood beside the stage in a midnight blue gown, one hand around a water glass she had not touched. Her face gave away nothing. That was her talent. Across the ballroom, her mother-in-law, Evelyn Wren, glowed under the charity lights like a woman who had spent 40 years buying innocence by the yard. Then a younger woman rose from table 12 and took the microphone from a startled MC. The room inhaled. "You can honor family values all night, Mrs. Wren," the woman said, shaking, then sharpening. "But tell them about your daughter. The one you hid. The one you put on Wren Meridian payroll under another name." Silence hit harder than any scream. Mara did not move. But slowly, carefully, she turned toward her husband, Daniel. He had gone pale in the expensive way powerful men do. Not with fear alone. With recognition. He knew the name the stranger had not yet said. That was when Mara understood the humiliation was not beginning tonight. It had started long before. She had simply been the last person invited to feel it. "Mara, don't react here," Daniel said quietly. "Not deny it. Not explain. Not ask if she was all right. Just that." A command dressed as damage control. And under the ballroom chandeliers, with everybody watching the Wren family pretend not to collapse, Mara finally felt the first clean edge of the truth slide into place. Mara stepped into the ladies' lounge and met herself in 3 gilt mirrors. Calm mouth. Dry eyes. A woman so composed she looked heartless, which was useful when men mistook composure for obedience. She had spent 6 years at Wren Meridian as Director of Culture and Compliance, a title Daniel once called adorable in private and strategic in public. She handled complaints the way museums handle smoke. Quietly. Before donors smell it. She also knew where the company buried discomfort. In severance packets. In rewritten exit interviews. In HR reports that vanished after Evelyn's office called. Then Tanya Bird appeared near the vanity, lipstick perfect, loyalty rented out to whoever signed her bonus. "You need to leave through the side entrance," Tanya said. "Press is already outside." Mara watched her smooth a folded paper with 2 fingers. A guest list. No. A seating chart, revised by hand. Table 12 had been moved closer to the stage. Celeste had been positioned, not invited. Who placed her? Mara asked coolly. "I don't know what you're implying," Tanya said too quickly. Mara took the sheet from her hand. At the bottom, in Evelyn's narrow blue handwriting, were 3 words. "Keep her visible." Something colder than embarrassment touched Mara then. This was not a family secret exploding by accident. It was leverage. Managed. Deployed. Somewhere between the charity auction and the dessert course, a hidden child had become a weapon. And if Evelyn was using her own daughter for image control, there was no line in this family she had not already crossed. "Where is Daniel?" Mara asked softly. Tanya hesitated. "With legal." Of course he was. Not with his wife. Not with the woman holding the first proof that the night had been staged. Mara left through the service corridor anyway. Outside, the country club smelled like cut grass and expensive panic. She sat in her car but did not start it. Instead, she opened the company archive app on her phone, the one Daniel assumed she used only for policy files and training slides. 3 weeks earlier, an assistant named Nia Cruz had come to Mara with a complaint she never officially filed. Not because it lacked detail. Because Daniel entered Mara's office before Nia finished crying and said, very gently, that some women confuse access with intimacy. The sentence had stayed in Mara's body like a splinter. She searched Nia's name. Terminated. Separation by mutual agreement. NDA attached. Exit reason, performance instability. Mara closed her eyes. Then another file surfaced. Celeste Rowe. Strategic Partnerships Consultant. Paid through a shell vendor with no office address. There was a note attached by Tanya. Executive family sensitivity. Restrict visibility. You hit her inside payroll, Mara whispered. Then her phone vibrated sharply. Nia was calling. Not texting. Calling. Mara answered on the first pulse. I saw you at the gala, Nia said quickly, frightened. Listen carefully. They paid me to sign, but they didn't destroy everything. I kept copies. Your husband wasn't the only one. And Celeste isn't just a daughter. She's the one Evelyn uses to collect dirt. On executives. On wives. On anyone who might embarrass the brand. Mara went still. Concrete, glass, and bloodless insight aligned all at once. A hidden child raised in the shadows of a luxury empire. Folded into consulting. Used as deniable leverage. The Wrens had not concealed Celeste out of shame alone. They had built a private enforcement arm around her existence. By 10 the next morning, Mara was seated in a glass conference room overlooking downtown Dallas. The skyline looked expensive and indifferent. Daniel sat across from her with outside counsel to his right and Tanya to his left. Evelyn joined by speakerphone, because some women preferred to control ruin from a safer chair. A folder waited at Mara's place setting. Her name was already printed on the tab. Given the events at the gala, the board needs a temporary narrative, Daniel said in a measured voice. We think it's best if you take leave. Quietly. Narrative. Not facts. Not truth. Narrative. Mara opened the folder. Inside was a draft statement implying she had mishandled employee grievances, violated confidentiality, and exposed the company to reputational harm. Her own work in compliance had been rewritten into negligence. It was elegant, fast, and very nearly complete. If you sign today, your package remains generous, Tanya said carefully. Then Evelyn's voice flowed through the speaker. You are not family by blood, Mara. Do not confuse proximity with protection. There it was. The true humiliation. Not that Daniel had lied. Not even that his mother had built a career on buried women. It was that they believed Mara would absorb this, as she had absorbed every slight wrapped in silk. Daniel reached across the table then, touching her wrist the way one calms a skittish client. Sign, he said quietly. I can still keep your name out of it. Mara withdrew her hand. Slowly. The smallest sound in the room was skin leaving skin. Yet it carried like a slap. Nobody moved. Nobody rescued the silence. Mara did not sign. She left the tower with her termination draft in her bag and drove straight to Highland Park National, where her late father-in-law had once asked her to witness a signature during a holiday weekend no one else had made time for. She remembered because he had thanked her twice, with the grave politeness of a man living among people who interrupted him. The banker recognized the authorization code. 10 minutes later, a long cream envelope rested in Mara's lap. Inside was a second will, dated 11 years earlier than the one the family had probated. Attached were paternity results, a trust memo, and a handwritten letter from Charles Wren. If Evelyn refuses acknowledgement, place this with counsel. Celeste is my daughter. She is to inherit equally, and her existence is never to be used as leverage against staff, family, or company. Mara read the last line twice. Never to be used as leverage. So Charles had known what Evelyn was capable of. He had prepared for it. And someone had buried the paper after his death. Then Mara opened the copies Nia had sent. One was a voice memo. Daniel's voice, unmistakable, calm and bored. Keep HR off the record. Offer her the standard NDA. If she refuses, Celeste can handle the pressure. Another file showed shell payments to Celeste linked to settlement dates. Another contained Tanya's edits to complaint logs. Names removed. Dates softened. Conduct recategorized. Mara sat very still after the recording ended. No tears. No gasp. Just breath, slow and careful, while proof arranged itself into a blade. Mara asked Celeste to meet at the Crescent Tea Room, a place rich women used for apologies they did not mean. Celeste arrived in a cream suit that made her look even more like Charles Wren around the eyes. Up close, she seemed less like a bomb and more like what bombs leave behind. She had her father's mouth and Evelyn's caution. "If you're here to protect them, save your breath," Celeste said flatly. "I'm here to ask who taught you to blackmail women for this family," Mara replied calmly. Celeste flinched. Not at the accusation. At the accuracy. The story came out in fragments. Evelyn had paid for schools, apartments, silence. Then work. First introductions. Then errands. Then dossiers. Find who was vulnerable. Find who would sign. Find who would disappear. Celeste said she hated it. Mara believed her only partly. Survival stains people in uneven ways. "Your husband used me. My mother used me," Celeste said, strained. "They said if the company cracked, I'd get nothing." Mara slid the second will across the table. Celeste stared at the signature, then at the paternity pages beneath it. Her breath changed first. A sharp pull in. Then nothing. "You were never the threat," Mara said quietly. "You were the insurance policy. Help me end it." Celeste nodded once. Fast. Almost angry. By sunset, Mara had a plan. Nia would testify. Celeste would authenticate shell payments and Evelyn's instructions. The board would receive the second will, the audio memo. The altered HR logs. At the same moment the press got a secure package from an anonymous sender. If the Wrens wanted narrative, she would give them one they could not contain. The emergency board meeting began at 9 under a sky the color of wet steel. Mara entered last, no longer an employee, not yet anything else. Daniel looked offended by her presence. Evelyn looked bored, which was her preferred costume before impact. 5 directors sat around the table with counsel and 2 independent investigators called in overnight once reporters started asking about HR settlements. Outside the room, phones buzzed in waves. The press packet had landed. "Mrs. Vale, you requested 5 minutes," the board chair said tightly. Mara placed 3 items on the table. The second will. The shell payment summary. A transcript of Daniel's recording. Then she nodded to Celeste, who entered behind her, pale and upright. Evelyn's boredom broke first. "You ungrateful little fool," she hissed. That line, more than any denial, did the damage. Celeste sat beside Mara and identified the vendor accounts, the cash transfers, the assignments tied to harassment complaints and executive indiscretions. Nia joined by video and stated, in a voice that trembled only once, that Daniel cornered her after a conference dinner and HR erased her report. Then the projector played his memo. "Keep HR off the record. Offer her the standard NDA. If she refuses, Celeste can handle the pressure." Daniel tried to speak. No one let him. Tanya reached for water with a hand that would not steady. One director stood. Another removed his glasses. The chair asked counsel, very quietly, whether they were looking at fraud, concealment, retaliation, and probate suppression. Counsel did not answer quickly enough. He did not need to. The room already knew. "Mr. Wren, Ms. Bird, you are suspended effective immediately. Mrs. Wren, your access is revoked pending full investigation." Public perception changed in real time. Not a crack. A collapse. By evening, the headlines had language money could not smother. Secret Air. NDA Network. Harassment cover-up. Probate questions. Ren Meridian stock dipped before the closing bell and kept falling in after-hours trading. Donors withdrew. Council multiplied. Daniel sent Mara 11 messages, each one shorter than the last. The final one read, "We could have fixed this privately." Mara deleted it without opening the thread again. She stood on a hotel terrace with Celeste, both women looking out over a city that loved winners and feasted on the moment they slipped. Celeste had inherited a trust she never knew was hers and a name she was not sure she wanted. Mara had won everything she set out to win, except the years she had spent mistaking endurance for loyalty. "Did it make you feel better?" Celeste asked quietly. Mara considered the question honestly, which was harder than vengeance. "It made them stop," she said, calm and tired. "That was the victory. Not joy. Not closure." Silence broken in the right direction. Before they parted, Celeste handed Mara a small gold cuff link engraved with Charles Wren's initials. She had found it in Evelyn's desk drawer beside old settlement ledgers. Mara closed her fingers around the metal and felt, absurdly, the weight of all the men who expected women to carry their secrets for free. And that's how it ended, at least for that season. Fortune gone. Titles gone. The family portrait broken beyond repair. But if you listen closely, the last sound is not triumph. It is the small click of a cuff link in a woman's hand, and the private knowledge that revenge can clear a room, while still leaving one chair painfully empty. Thank you for listening. Join me again next time for another story of polished lies, dangerous silence, and the truth that finally bites back.